Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SourceForge Podcast. Thank you for joining us today. I'm your host, Bo Hamilton, Senior Editor and Multimedia Producer here at SourceForge, the world's most visited software comparison site where B2B software buyers compare and find business software solutions. We have two guests here today to talk about Shift, a company that is rethinking the modern browser to bring all of your accounts, all of your apps, and your workflows together into one seamless online experience. So to talk more about that, we have the VP of Product for Shift, Michael Fouché, and we also have Sabrina Banadega, VP of Marketing at Shift. So we have a lot to cover today. Welcome, you two. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, it's a pleasure to be here.
Michael, I want to start with you. Could you kind of start by sharing the story behind how Shift was founded and what its journey has been so far?
Yeah. The story is typical of many applications that start. It was scratching my own itch. I was managing multiple projects at our parent company, Red Brick, and we would spin up all these different products. We would create email domains, and I was having to manage all of these multiple email domains. And we'd often default to G Suite or Google Workspaces, but having to manage all of those in one browser was very difficult at the time. Get logged out, get logged in. It was just a terrible experience. But I really liked the web interface. So I was trying to think of a tool that we could use that combined everything, but allowed you to switch between your multiple workspaces. And that was sort of how Shift was born, that concept of creating this application that rendered the web interface, but that you could easily switch between all of your email accounts, all in that one interface. And that was the beginning of how we started. And then quickly from there, through early feedback, we added an app directory. When you added your email account, it automatically added your calendar and drive associated with that account, whether it was Google or Microsoft accounts. And our early users found that extremely compelling to have that all-in-one interface. And that's how it started.
Wow. Interesting. So what was the timeline there? I have in my notes, it looks like you guys were kind of started in 2016. Is that about right?
Yeah. So we released our version 1 in late December of 2016. And that initial version was very basic. It literally was just switching between email accounts, no app directory, nothing. But we took that first year getting feedback from users. And then we launched our version 2 in November of 2017. And that was the one that included our first app directory, which at the time only had less than 100 apps in it. And you could then we added Microsoft support in that version. And and then it just grew from there.
Wow. So, okay. So we're going on almost a decade now. Could you sort of elaborate on how Shift has evolved from when it started back in barely 2016 to where it's become now in 2024?
Yeah, we started off, and I would imagine with your customers, the people who know, probably a bit more technically focused. We started building our product on the Electron platform, so we were cross-platform using the Electron framework, and it had some limitations, and we were on that for almost 6 to 7 years, until about 3.5 years ago, we moved from Electron onto build on top of Chromium. And that had a couple of major benefits. One, it was much more performant. And two, it allowed us to take advantage of the incredible security and update mechanisms and focus that's part of the Chromium platform. So we were able to leverage that. And so we've been on Chromium now for close to 3.5 years, and there was no looking back. So there's been a lot of change, and we had a lot of features and functions, but from a platform perspective, that was kind of how we evolved.
Interesting. Yeah, I want to kind of hear some more about kind of the philosophy behind what sort of got you to start this venture. What were some of the pain points or the problems that Shift started out to kind of solve? Do you think that the browser experience is broken? Sorry, there's a few questions here, but what is Shift doing with its browser that you don't see from other browsers out there?
Well, let me first focus on what we sort of landed on that really seemed to solve the initial pain point that I had, which was the ability to maintain all these multiple web-based email accounts in one interface without getting logged out and logged in. By creating these partitioned spaces between each of these logins, allowed people to smoothly add all these email accounts and know that when they moved between them, they weren't going to get logged out. Or if they opened up, Google Doc, it would open it up and not, oh, you're not logged into that account. That was the initial solve. And we found that there was, a portion of the market that really loved that. But what the other pain point that we solved as we started doing that, because we created this partition between their email accounts, we recognized that there was a lot of value in segregating each of those into the individual workspaces, as we call them. So, for example, if you have an account that's tied to your work email, you probably have several apps that you use at work that may use Google as the auth provider to log into that account. And what we found is people really love that because they would add those apps into that workspace. And when they clicked on the app, it would say, oh, do you want to log in with Google? Sure. You click. It already had those credentials in that workspace. So it was like a 2-click thing and you're into that app. And that workspace kept those credentials and it allowed you to easily log into that account and wouldn't log you out. If it did log you out, it would just quickly, do you want to log in with this account? You just click it and you're back in working. So that was another pain point that we solved. People adding to unique apps to each of their workspaces that are probably tied to a specific email account. So that was another solution we had. So that was the integration of the apps and the tools in the space. The other thing that we solved was going back to the general browser space. There are many great browsers out there, Chrome being one of them, and we are built on top of the open source project Chromium, which Chrome comes from. So it is a great foundation. They work hard to make it performant, secure, and less memory intensive as they can. But the interface that most of the general browser companies make are designed for the general user. Everyone knows a browser. They have all these tabs that they create. They have bookmarks. They have an input bar. But as we've evolved over these particularly accelerated in the last 10 to 15 years, is that no one is building native apps, particularly on the Windows platform. Everyone's building web apps. So people have become overwhelmed with these apps, these web apps. So now when you get on a Zoom call or some sort of web conference, people have to share their desktop and their browser. There's almost a bit of shame for some people because they've got 150 tabs across the top. And when we were talking to our customers, this was another problem that we were solving. They were able to move many of those tabs that they had in their browser, and they could move them into Shift, and they could group them into these different workspaces where it no longer became overwhelming. Where you had 150 apps open, now you could group them into your different workspaces, and you didn't spend all this time searching for a tab that you knew was open. Now it was, it lowered the cognitive load so that you could go, oh, okay, I know where that is. It's in this workspace, it's here. Rather than, oh, where is it in my tabs? And that was another pain point that we came across that we solved. And that was huge.
And I think further to that, Michael, is that the amount of hours that you're actually wasting, switching between tabs. And there's studies out there that say that it's about an average of 4 hours a week that people are wasting. And to think of what you could do with those additional 4 hours without all of that context switching from one tab to another, helping to organize the ways of working or the ways of living. It's not just work that's done using a browser. It's also different aspects of your life, whether that's a hobby or whether that's social media, various different aspects of your parent. There's a whole other level of organization that happens that you use the internet for. So it's really kind of saves time and helps you actually get off your computer so that you can get out and actually enjoy your life off the screen.
It's so true. It's so frustrating trying to find a tab that you're looking for. This is a daily occurrence for me where I'm like one of those users where I have like 100 tabs open, and I'm maybe not that many, but a lot of tabs open when I'm trying to always find the right one, shifting between web page after another. And it's just like, I get hard on myself because I just get frustrated.
Yeah, it's a real pain point that we solve. And, I've looked into some research that there are people who, in some of the research I've looked at, people are afraid to even close tabs because they've done research or they've done a bunch of work and they've opened tabs for some particular task at some point, like a week ago. They know it's up there and they're like, I should close some of these tabs, but I know there's something up there. And so they are reluctant to even close the tabs, but yet it's also an overwhelming thought to go through the tabs to find what they were working on before. So it's a bit of a catch-22. And I think by us providing this sort of scaffolding for people to put things into places that they can manage is part of our special sauce that we deliver to people. And we hear it loud and clear from our users that that's what they like.
We've called those the emotional support tabs.
Yeah.
The emotional support tabs.
Can't really get rid of them because you don't know what's going to happen if they go away.
I like it.
Yeah. We sort of, I always liken it to, we bring calm out of tab chaos.
And you bring calm out of via user experience and intuitive design, which is really leading to my next question here, because that's such a vital element for any web browser and just for adoption, right? If it's not intuitive, if it's not user friendly, I know personally, I start getting averse to it. I get the ick. I want to just switch back to something I'm more familiar with. So what are some of like the guiding principles that shape how Shift's browser is crafted, both for casual and power users? And how do you sort of bridge that gap?
Yeah, so one of our guiding principles is that we try to leverage as much muscle memory as there is out there, particularly from Chrome and Chromium. So when you can use our application, and you can tell visually it's different, but all the elements are there. And all the keyboard shortcuts that you're used to in Chrome work. Adding new tab, adding a bookmark, closing a tab. We make sure we keep all of those same things so people feel that comfort level. When they import their bookmarks into our product, bookmarks look the same. When you go into our settings, it looks different than Chromium settings, but all the things you're used to are there because we're based on Chromium. But so we really rely on that sort of comfort level. And then we allow people to explore as their needs expand. Our product sort of meets them where they're at as an internet user. So you can use our product and it looks and acts just like a normal browser. And you can be in a default workspace and not even see it. It's just you're just working in the browser. But as soon as you need to add, say, a workspace for your home account or one for your hobby or your volunteer group, you can easily add them and move between them. And that becomes kind of easy. And then we guide you on how to add apps in each of those workspaces. So we don't, we don't push it into people's faces. We hope that they find it and discover it as their needs change while they're using the internet.
Okay. So yeah, if you're coming from the Chrome browser, which I imagine most people will be, you're going to be right at home. It sounds like you're going to kind of find some familiarity.
Yeah, we really work hard to do that. We also have a very unique onboarding experience as well, we feel, that also guides you and sets you up in a way that's perfect for your needs. We ask in our onboarding process if you're willing for us to import your Chrome bookmarks and all your Chrome data, not all of it, but most of it. And if they say yes, we actually during the onboarding experience, we look through your history just locally. We don't on the server. It's just happening in the client. We look to see if you've logged into web email accounts, and then we present them to you. Do you want to add these email accounts to Shift? You can say yes or no, but if you do, they're all added. And then we also look through apps that you may have visited and used often. And if they match to our app directory, we sort of pre-check them and ask you if you want to add those. So we try to make that onboarding experience based on your current day-to-day usage of Chrome, and then bring that into Shift, but present it in a way that's not overwhelming. We take all those apps that you have in those 100 tabs and we move them into a workspace. And so we try to make that move over very seamless.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I kind of focus it to the user that's using the browser. I want to send it over to Sabrina as the marketing guru, the people person for Shift. Could you maybe expand upon some of kind of the points Michael was saying and talk about who exactly might benefit from using Shift?
Yeah, well, every marketing person never wants to hear or say, well, this product is for everybody. And ultimately, that's certainly not how we market, although it really can be, in that what Michael was saying about meeting the user where they're at. You don't have to be a super technophile to be able to use the product. And you also don't even need to use the entire product. And, the unified calendar and some of the maybe more advanced features that you might not even ever need. But if we can be that ultimate power browser, which is what our tagline is, what we mean by power browser isn't just that we just want to compete in the browser space. It's very much like we're beyond a browser. It is using productivity and weaving that into the reason why we're here, to really ultimately help our customer experience a different way of being online. And how we do that is really unique. So who benefits from that outside of everybody? It would be more of those entrepreneurs the individuals that are maybe marketing individuals, or they're developers, or they're designers, and they might have multiple clients, that there is a bit more of a demand on having more productivity focus, or being able to organize your work life and your personal life all in one. So it's certainly, we have a bit of a niche. We focus on communicating to more of the tech enthusiasts, mainly because a lot of the mainstream audience does look to tech enthusiasts to inspire what's the next cool product to use to really help. So while we focus on those early adopters and those tech enthusiasts, there's really a lot in there for everybody, really.
Yeah. Where do you see the browser going, in the next maybe decade or even beyond? Because I mean, right now you see some browsers really taking a privacy first approach. You see some startups working on just kind of changing the overall design, largely with tab management. You guys, I feel like your main approach is integration with services and kind of managing all the different services that somebody uses both for work and personal. Where do you just see it going? Do you think the web is changing? You mentioned web apps are becoming more popular.
Yeah, I think I can't predict exactly where things will go, but I am sure of a few things. I think if privacy and security are not job one for all of the browser competitors out there, they won't be in the market for very long. I think that is becoming so clear for people that is just kind of, they have to feel it. They have to know it. They can't just, there will always be people who don't care that much, but I think for most people that will be table stakes work that you need to do. I think that there are, Chrome and Chromium are so dominant in the space that their, design and layout, and Firefox follows much the same. Microsoft Edge is the same. It's built on top of Chromium as well, but Opera, Vivaldi to some extent, they all following very much the same sort of common browser layout, which we do as well. We are leveraging that muscle memory that people think of. There are tabs at the top. Ours are in a slightly different position, but around there is an URL input bar. There's a bookmark bar, and there is just a familiarity there that, does it meet the needs of most people today? I think right now it does. And there are some interesting different takes on it. You can see that with Arc is taking a much different approach, and it's unique and it's interesting, but it's quite a massive change. I don't know. I don't think that's where things will coalesce. I think there will always be a group of people that will take the time to learn that new interface. I think where we will evolve is by using, everyone's talking about AI and AI functionality, but really, and that will be in the products, but it will be plumbing. It will be things that happen where you open up a bunch of tabs and you will have a feature that will just group them automatically based on some set of criteria that the AI has figured out and you're okay with, and it just groups them for you. And it works. It just makes sense. Like, you don't even think about it, just does it. But I imagine it will group them for you and it will make sense. And you'll go, oh, yeah, great. And you won't even think about it. And if you want a summary of everything, great. If you open up, you're doing some shopping and you open up 4 or 5 shopping sites, then a new tab will come up that will instantly create a comparison of all of those items for you and give you a summary of those items. I think whenever you are writing an input field in a browser, you will have this thing that will pop up and it'll correct it. It'll, rewrite it for you if you want. It'll do all those things and it'll just be plumbing and it'll be something we expect. But everything will be more organized, more efficient. And I think that we will also move into a world where everything will become, again, more safe and secure and private. And I think this is what, we are moving towards. And I know for us, we are constantly thinking, we talk about these workspaces where people move into these different spaces. But what we haven't talked about, and the other benefit that we found, is creating this distraction-free environment. The other thing we hear loud and clear from our users is by moving your work into these different workspaces, when you move into that workspace, and one thing we've worked on is our notification and muting system. So we allow people a lot of control over how they get notified, so that when they move to a workspace, they can be in a distraction-free environment. They're no longer getting notifications from their other workspaces, or we've got a setting where if I'm in a meeting, turn off all notifications. You can set that. That's hugely popular with our users. And I think that's another benefit of our workspaces is that, okay, I've done work. Now I'm working on my volunteer work. I go here. I'm no longer distracted. I don't see those unread messages. I'm just in this space. And that's another thing that we bring.
Yeah, speaking of the workspaces, and maybe Sabrina, you can answer this. Are there any specific user groups or types of organizations that you would say derive the most value from what Shift has to offer? Because we talked a little bit about the casual and the power users out there, and what you're doing to kind of bridge the gap and reach both of those types of people. But I'm curious if you have any like real world examples of kind of illustrating your ability to reach the different types of users out there.
Yeah, it's such a good question. Taking it further from what I mentioned before, those entrepreneurs, developers, management professionals, they're all really engaging with Shift. And, we look at data in our product and we know for sure that those groups are using our browser 3 times more than any other professionals. And we see that through who is engaging with our marketing content out there. We see it with information that we get from our direct users. And Michael did mention how it is that we speak to our users and get their insights. Also, we have a ton of case studies that indicate that people are really looking for those innovative ways that can help them manage their work, so they can actually spend time doing other things. Or if they're an entrepreneur, rather than trying to organize their life, it's organized. Then they can actually focus on their subject matter expertise rather than getting stuck in the inefficiencies of processes. While technology is great and all the advances in it, of course, there's always that shadow side, which there's thousands and thousands of apps out there that they're built to help us, and the overload of them can actually do the opposite. And so the organization of them really can help make a difference. So our product does that, as well as when we're speaking to our users, I hear them saying things like, I knew I had this problem. I knew that I was struggling with inefficiencies, not really knowing exactly what was causing it. And once they were introduced to Shift and start using it, it solved a problem that they almost didn't even know that they had, and that they don't know how it is that they would function once they're in it. They feel almost like they've lost something if they're no longer working in Shift, or cannot work in Shift any longer if they happen to, take a laptop on a vacation, which of course we don't ever do. And it happens to maybe be a personal laptop when they're used to their work laptop, and how to function and how to get around it. So it's definitely become a way of working, and we sort of function as that assistant that is there to help organize things and to help things go a little smoother.
Yeah, I've just been, it seems like a perfect fit, because we have every company nowadays with the remote shift that we've experienced these last handful of years. We've been adopting Teams and Slack and all these remote applications. And I feel like it'd be a perfect avenue to kind of integrate that with Shift and, help help get Shift out there for some of the enterprise users. Michael, could you kind of, you touched a lot on the development process, but I want to hear a little bit more about some of the nitty gritty features and behind the scenes stuff you're working on. Is there anything that you can share that is maybe unique about your product development process, and how would you say you prioritize new features to add to Shift?
Sure. Well, I'll start with one of the unique features that we have, and something we lean into is how we do build our interface in Shift. Building interfaces for browsers is very difficult. For products like Chrome, the interface that you see is in a layout language that's just completely unique to Chrome, and it's all written in C++. That's why when you see a lot of Chromium variants out there, like Brave or even Microsoft Edge and dozens of others, it looks very much like Chrome, because to actually alter the interface is extremely hard. You need very well-versed Chromium developers in order to do it. Now, Microsoft is unique in that they can deploy thousands of people at that, and they have done a pretty good job of altering that interface. But for all the other smaller companies, it's much more difficult. What we do is we're leveraging a unique system which allows us to draw our interface. We have this empty shell, and we're able to create our interface using standard internet technologies, HTML and JavaScript. And what is beautiful about that is that we are able to change and alter our interface very quickly. So we kind of have that competitive advantage in that we're able to create quite a unique looking interface using standard technologies. So number one, that's one of our differentiators. The other thing, from more from the product perspective, and how we work with our developers, is we've deployed a very unique prioritization mechanism internally to help us really focus on working on those items that have the most value to our customers. So for every, we call them stories that we create, which are as kind of a unit of work focused on the user. We go through quite a process of assigning both a customer value, a revenue implication value, and a development effort value. And we have an equation that we use that applies a certain number to that story, and then we use it to rank. And we're not strict; it's a guide, and we have other priorities that we have on top. But we found that has really helped us zero in on working on those items that have the most impact to our end user. And that's really allowed us to focus and prioritize our work.
Yeah, I imagine it's quite the task, right? Trying to figure out which products, which features to move up the list and prioritize.
Of course, all of marketing's.
They go to the top of the list.
Always.
Yeah. Got to prioritize marketing. What are some of so as a Shift user now myself, what would you say would be the best channel to communicate my feedback to you guys?
Yeah, 100% to our customer support channel. We our support team reports into me. They come in under product, and we take that feedback, and we have a system where that's fed up into our systems, and doesn't go into a black hole. If you're having an issue, go to our support and we'll get back to you. That's another thing that we think is a key differentiator of our product as a browser company, is you can actually reach our support, and there are real people there that will respond to you. We have an internal SLA of during working hours, we try to respond within 2 hours, and we're often meeting that at a 95% plus average. And we work very hard at that. For such a small company that we are, I've got a 5-person support team. It's quite big for our size. And it's because we are keen we want to have that connection with our users. And we survey to get CSAT values back, and we work really hard at making sure people are served. Because if they pay for our product, and even our free users, we still give them as much support as they need as well. We just think that's incredibly important. We think it's another differentiator that you don't really see in the browser market.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear that it's really important, because I talked to many different companies, and of course they mention the importance of customer service, but I feel like for a company like Shift, it's more important than ever. We talked about the browser market share and how it's dominated by some of the biggest tech companies in the world, and they integrate their browser with their operating system and their other services. And then just generally speaking, we know that people are generally resistant to change because they get comfortable with how things work, look, and function. So it's no easy task trying to chip away at that and get people to give you a chance. So I think that's great that you're really listening to users and trying to get them to take the leap and see what Shift is all about. And also just what to improve upon, because there's always going to be things to improve upon.
The other thing I should mention is that we also have set up a customer advisory board. We've reached out, and it's been running for a couple of years, where we've reached out to some of our most loyal users, and we poll them to see if they want to be part of our customer advisory board. And we meet with them every quarter. We have an active Slack channel with them. We review new features and functions with them before we release to get their early feedback. And so we really tap into that, our users, to help us guide the development of our product. So customer is, it's just not lip service. We really we think we walk the talk.
Outside of product as well, we definitely use that customer advisory board for marketing and testing messages. And if things are resonating, are we getting it right, or are we a little bit off? Because I think sometimes we can get a bit myopic when it is, we think we know, but there's nothing like talking to the user to really get the truth. We can see truth in reviews, which we're out there on all those review platforms. But ultimately, being able to have a dialogue and a conversation is really invaluable from a marketing perspective as well.
Yeah, I can imagine it's great for A/B testing and just pushing surveys to try to gauge the audience. That's really interesting. Well, looking ahead, I know we talked about this a little bit, but we're coming down to the last couple of questions I have for you. We talked about where you see the browser going in the future. Along those same lines, what are some new developments or offerings from Shift that are on the horizon and that we should be watching for? And is there any like one particular feature or something that you're particularly excited about and you want to share with us?
Yeah. Well, we can't talk about any specifics, but we are working, we're obviously always working on the next version. And what we are hoping to do at a very high level with our next version, obviously, is continue on providing the most incredible experience for our current users. But we are really leaning in this next version into sort of the app-focused browser concept. So you'll see some really interesting offerings in that space in the next version. And, as mentioned, I talked a little bit about how, AI will be, how it will be part of the plumbing in applications moving forward. And I think that's, although I can't talk specifics, we will have something in that space as well. But I'm just excited that we are moving forward and really, we have this interesting niche group that we're working with now. And I think in the future, we hope to expand that to an even bigger and broader audience, but still leaning into that ability to transform our interface to meet users where they're at. We're also going to be leaning into that concept as well.
That's great. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing all that you guys come out with. And I like the tease there with the AI and kind of keeping a tight lip, or I won't pry too much. I'll try not to, but I'm looking forward.
Sabrina has briefed me well.
I know. I'm just here to mute him.
Yeah,
if there's anything. I can share one other thing that is quite exciting. It is not Michael has no idea. No, I'm just kidding. We have been working on it for a couple of years, and it is something that's going to put us on the map for being the first in the browser space to do this. And that's all I'm going to say.
Wow. That's a good tease.
Yeah, no, I love headlines like that. Anything I can share first, the world's first.
World's first.
Browser's the best. Yeah, those are
And I'm glad I didn't say that. I would have got in trouble for even saying that, but our VP of marketing can, which is great.
All right.
Well, I didn't say first in what. So
no, that's true.
Maybe you can elaborate after we end this. We'll we'll stay in touch. But Sabrina, last question I have for you. For those interested in learning more about Shift and maybe giving it a try, where should you send them?
So definitely shift.com, click on download, experience it for yourself. We have a lot of really engaging content out there on YouTube. We've launched a couple new YouTube series, one of them called Shift Tips, where we're just providing you tips on how to make your digital life simpler using our product, but also outside of our product. You can find us on Instagram and on LinkedIn, and we're on Reddit now. And we are recently growing quite quickly our TikTok audience as well. So lots of places you can find us online. And yeah, stay tuned for some fun content upcoming.
Awesome. Well, excited. Shift.com, and you guys should all give it a try. Yeah, maybe it'll be your new main default browser. Well, thank you guys so much for your time. I know you guys are very busy and have to go. So Sabrina and Michael, thank you.
Thank you so much, Bo.
Thank you, Bo.
Of course, this has been a great conversation, and hopefully we can have you back maybe maybe 6 months or a year or something, we can talk about what has changed and the new features you guys are rolling out.
Yeah, that'd be exciting.
Sounds great.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening to the SourceForge podcast. I am your host, Bo Hamilton. Make sure to subscribe to stay up to date with all of the upcoming B2B software related podcasts we have for you. We'll talk to you in the next one.